welcome to the 5th episode of Kentucky Go Digital Live. Today we have our second episode for the October series, which is about creating digital infrastructures to organize your school with Blogger. I am Brooke Whitlow, and I'm the Instructional Technology Coordinator here in Hardin County Schools, and I will be your host for today's show. Do I sound like Maury Povich yet? Last week we had the opportunity to talk about digital infrastructures using Google Classroom with Ben Maynard, which was a really great show. I know that here in Hardin County Schools we have a lot of our admin who are using Google Classroom, and so today I'm really excited to learn from our guest about using Blogger. I know it's a huge growth area for me, so I'm really excited to sit back and learn. So I'm joined today by our Kentucky Go Digital Live team. We have Heather Worrell, a digital learning coach at Kentucky Office of Education Technology, and she is going to be leading us in some practical how-tos using Blogger. Hi, Heather.
Hey, my friend. Glad to be here.
We also have Courtney DeRosset. She's the Chief Information Officer for Floyd County Schools, and she is going to be running Q&A for us over at or on the Twitter sphere. So if you have questions or comments or anything, just follow the Kentucky Go Digital hashtag over there, and Courtney will make sure that you are taken care of. Hi, Courtney.
Hi, guys.
We also have Elaine Abernathy, the Technology Integration Specialist for McCracken County Schools, and she is going to be running our YouTube Live Q&A. So if you're watching us live on YouTube, you'll notice a live chat over to the right of the video, and this is a fun feature to really kind of interact with us during the show. Elaine's going to be running that, so if you have questions, drop them in that live chat, and we will make sure that they get asked and brought into our actual live show. Hello, Elaine.
Hey, guys.
All right, and we are so excited to welcome back to Kentucky Go Digital Live Mr. Wes Bradley, the principal at Thomas Nelson High School in Nelson County Schools. And since Wes has already been on our show once and got his official fancy introduction from Heather, then I'm going to introduce him the Brooke Whitlow style way. So I have to share that I first met Heather and Wes in 2014 at ISTE, and we just kind of connected through some mutual friends, and I will never forget sitting at the expo at ISTE and talking to Wes and Heather for the first time and thinking, who is this quiet little socially awkward man who has the most brilliant mind that I have ever seen in my entire life? Wes has been so influential in my own life and career, and I literally am so thankful that he is a part of my tribe. So I am so excited and humbled and honored to introduce him today. So welcome, Wes.
Hey, guys. I can't own this awkward thing for sure, but I do appreciate all the other pieces. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into Blogger and start talking about our journey with this and going to screen share. So here we go. Oh. All right. So one of the key pieces as we think about building a school and telling a story in your school, for me, has become also a part of our blog. So our blog started about 5 years ago, and it became an answer to how do we continue to organize and tell our story. And our blog, in many ways, has been a living story of Thomas Nelson. So if you go back here to our blog archive in 2013, you can see here the first ever post was made in June of that year, and it was a very boring post. It was an agenda, and it looked like this. No images, nothing. It was just a very straightforward meeting agenda that had an overview of what we were doing for that day, and it was in the summer. And that was the extent of it. From there, we'll look at the second meeting we ever had here, and we'll say this was a post that was really sent out to teachers, and was an example of how we used to organize our weekly newsletters, and we would post them here, and we would also share this link out through an email. But it was really our way of organizing our storyline. So let's go ahead to when we started using it a little more creatively here, to our teams that started meeting in the summer. So our team started meeting in the summer that year, and each team would post on the blog, and they would have links that were embedded in this, questions, etc. And this is going back to 2013, so this was over 4 years ago. Little by little, we started to recognize that, as you can see here, we went from 45 posts in 2013, 65 in 2014, 133 in 2015. So we really started to increase our use of this, and it became an open forum for teachers. And an important part of that in the blog is, in the design process of the blog, is right down here, where you invite authors to the blog. So in our case, everyone that works at Thomas Nelson High School is an author on this blog. And you can see this continues on and on. There's a few people too that are work in the district that also have access to this blog. So we as a school really want to make sure that everyone has access to this very special story that we're telling internally. Let's see. So this archive over here tells you can go back any time in history. So like, let's say we want to go back to 2016, October. Sometimes this is helpful to see what we were doing in October last year around this time. So let's say this, and so there's a lot of agenda meetings in here. You can also see there was a post made here about a teacher that had a baby, and we include those pieces of our story in here as well. And instead of sending that out by email, we would just include the link for our team there. So let's see. Again, back to October 2016, PLC meetings. This was just over a year ago. This was the meeting we had on the 28th of October. And you'll see it's evolved to include links. So links to awards that we were giving out that day. And these would be printed out, but we also had them there for reference. Links to the actual document that we used to organize our meeting, which was which is essentially a Google slide that gave an overview of where we were headed, and really was a cultural story in and of itself. There are links to discussions that we were having as a team, where we could go in and talk through more intimately things that were going on from a school perspective, and we could crowdsource and brainwrite these ideas together in each house. So these are living infrastructures as well that were just linked into that process. So again, looking at over time, it has absolutely evolved. In many cases, you'll see videos integrated as well. Let's go to a recent meeting here in September, to our Leader Weekly, and no video there. But essentially, let's say there's a pencil right here, I believe. You can't see the pencil. It's supposed to be there. For some reason, our district has blocked it out. But if you click there, I can go and edit this post. And if I did, which is pretty typical, let's say I go to YouTube and I'm looking for, I want to show them Ben Maynard's Kentucky Go Digital video because it was awesome. I'll take this guy and I would simply paste that link, and that would go into there as a video. So if I updated that or previewed it, it's going to look like this. and I just click on the video and it would play. Which we do that a lot with stories that we're telling around culture, and those videos, those music videos, and cultural pieces that are so important to whatever it is, the community that we're creating here. So, with that said, I'm gonna to revert to the I'm gonna delete this and go back in time and close that out, and it won't save. So, with that said, right now, if you look at our blog. There's a party tomorrow for one of our amazing original generals who's leaving and taking a job as a finance leader in the central office. So that's there. She wrote her response to the teachers, just kind of letting them know her story and where she's headed. And instead of sending out an email, we just link to the blog for that. That is one thing I think that's also powerful, is since everyone has access to this information, everyone can celebrate that. So one of the things that we have done for the past 3 or 4 years are Fly Closer days. And these Fly Closer days, if you look here, this one for example, these are teachers that are observing throughout the school. Now we do these through Spacewalks, which we talked about in the last episode, and they reflect right here on the blog. And if you click the label, which is essentially like a hashtag, you can label post. You'll see all the Fly Closer Day posts that were labeled over time. So you can organize these based on themes, and you can go back in time when you're looking to see that story and be transparent about where it is that we were, where it is that we wanted to go, by simply clicking on that hashtag. And this goes on and on. There are probably 100 Fly Closer Day posts on here. And they become more and more artful over time. And that is really the key, I think, to Blogger, as opposed to, let's say, Google Classroom, is it allows you to create more of a narrative. It allows you to create more art through a multi-source platform. And you can, every year, for example, we change the image at the top of our blog. Every year, based on our theme, it evolves. And this storyline here really frames the opening of our year and our summer as we think about what it is that we're doing as a school. Additionally, let me go back to let's say a new post here. We talked about labels. So let's say we were doing house care teams. I'm going to label it that. I begin creating my post here. Every other house care team post that's there, when I post this, will come up. I can click on the label. It will bring those up. I think that's a valuable organizing tool as well. I know that that's something similar that occurs in almost any forum now. So let me go back to the home base for now, which is the MVA. You can also see on our blog, we've organized it around these pieces in our house communities. So every house has a blog, as well as data systems and PLC teams. So our PLC teams also build blogs, and they organize their space over time. So if we look at the science team, this takes you to very similar structure, except it looks a little different because they've customized it. But you can go back in time here to 2013, and you can see what they were doing on their team in 2013. So it looks like their first post was in August 2013, and they posted agenda, and it looked like this. Now they've taken on the possum theme, and it looks far different. It looks much like this. It looks like they post pictures. That's just their art that they're creating. What it does as well is, if you're a new team member to the science team, you can see their key organizing pieces, and you can go back in time and see what they've been working on. It allows for that PLC leadership to flow and organize itself much more seamlessly. So if we just want to look at all the posts from 2017, we click on 2017, and you can see all their posts from the past year. And notice the possum and the rodents continue to emerge as a part of their story. So with that in mind, I think a big part of Blogger for us is this idea of being stewards and really allowing for our work to sustain itself regardless of who's leading. And you click on any of these PLC teams here, you're going to see a history, an important history that allows you to uncover what it means to be a part of that team. This is our history team, and they meet every Tuesday. You can see the links going back in time, and this all links into another infrastructure that is living where they organize their work, which links to the discussion we had last time around spacewalking. But the key piece here you'll see across all blogs is they really started about 4 or 5 years ago. This team here in that time has had 3 PLC leaders, and those PLC leaders have built off of the platform and the inertia and the organization to continue to create coherence within this team and build upon the prior success that they've had. And again, with us, that's one reason why we feel like Blogger is so important, and it's so easy to use that really there is really a very small learning curve. We also use Blogger to organize our key documents. So our living leader calendar is at the top. Our flight path, which is our annual calendar that has the whole year mapped out in 4 pages. PLC teams, leadership strategic teams, our care book, our teacher handbook, which we call a flight book, and our beginning mission and vision. This is a document that really started Thomas Nelson 6 years ago. There's a lot of words on here, but it's a part of our history. And it's something that we know we can come back to when we think about what does it mean to be on our team here at Thomas Nelson. And it's a lot of writing and a lot of thinking that went into the original vision that has very much turned into a flight book or a care book. And this flight book is basically what a new teacher, or we would use as a part of a coaching process. So let's say you're working on, you say to the teacher, they're making art. This is what that means to us. If you say flying closer, watch the video. Being a leader, this is our definition of what it means to teach at Thomas Nelson. One slide in a Google presentation that also prints out hard copies if needed. So these are examples of just integrated structures that hold us accountable to, 1, not forgetting about them, and that 2, allow everyone in the school access to this important information. We also use a blog for our parents. And this is our parent blog, and our parents use this blog. They can post to this blog through a special login. We use it for parent videos, parent announcements, and celebrating kids. Our parents access a Google spreadsheet right here, which I'm not going to click in because it has a lot of information about our families. But they have access after taking confidentiality training, house parents to parents in their house so that they can contact them. And that's right here at the top of their blog. They also have a living infrastructure that the parents use right here at the top of their blog, and an overview of all the ways that we partner with parents. And just that transparency and organization is something that is really important. So regardless of who's leading, this is there to support them and their work as parents. Let's see, the data piece is key. I think one thing that is important, if you look over here, this is a gadget, which Heather will talk a little bit more about. If I want to change the gadget, I just go to design and layout, and over here where it says living data systems, I'm going to change a gadget right now. So I'm changing, this is our budget, and I'm linking the budget. I'm replacing this link for the budget to the new link for the budget, and I'm just pasting that link, hitting save, and there it is. It's now when I go back to the blog, I click on our living budget, you'll see, which the budget was already there. You'll see our budget for this year. And if you're a teacher in our school, and let's say you're in the English team, you can click there and you can see how much the English team has spent this year, what they've spent it on, the math team, the science team, social studies team. This is also on our site-based blog. We use a blog for Sitebase. You can see our business team hasn't spent any money. You can see that our Washington House has spent quite a bit of money, or they've made quite a few purchases. That transparency is really important. I think that's part of the blog that is so essential, is transparency, because everyone has access. Everyone really has the most important pieces right at the tip of their fingers. I do think the SPDM blog we have is also, if you're a principal and you're running SPDM, our SPDM blog is open to everyone. You'll see a living meeting schedule, so if we make changes and times, it's just right there. You'll see our annual planning calendar, which is living and has an updated infrastructure around Google, using a Google Doc that tells each month what we target as a site-based team. It has those mandatory policies. It also has a minutes folder so that we never have, if anybody wants the minutes of Thomas Nelson High School SPDM, then here they are. They go back 5 years. And they're all protected Google Docs that anyone has access to view. So this whole process of the blog for Sitebase has made it exceedingly easy. Yesterday, we were working with some principals, and I think it probably takes about a minute to prepare the agenda for the next month when you're copying and pasting and just updating a couple links. So this is the November 7th blog, meeting for Sitebase, and it is just really a reiteration of what we've been working on. It has a lot of living links, and then the only thing I changed is this minutes. So these are the minutes that we had from Tuesday night that are there for review about 4 weeks in advance of the meeting time. So these are all interconnected systems. It starts from a home base, and our home base is we call it the mission, vision, action, saved up here as the MVA for me. And it is a one-stop shop for all things Thomas Nelson, and really is an organizing agent for our story and the key pieces that we know are important to continue to organize and share and build that story. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing and see what questions you guys might have.
So well, first of all, I love how you talk about this as a piece of your story, which I think is probably one of the biggest differences than some of the other infrastructures we've talked about, and the capabilities that you have within Blogger to really turn the work that you're doing and you're building into a story. But let me kind of summarize just to make sure that I understand and that our viewers watching understand as well. So you have one blogger that is your mission, vision, action, and your one-stop shop, and then each individual house and each individual PLC, they have separate blogs that are actually different than your main, and you're linking them in together. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, we feel like that empowerment piece is so important. We have asked for some common elements on the blogs, and especially in the beginning. But I will tell you that I think the most important thing that we can do is empower them to create their own story within the larger coherent mission of our school on their blog. So yeah.
That was another question I had too. Do you give them any kind of template or guidelines in order for them to kind of create your own or their own blog, like a starting point, or are they just starting ground zero like you would just go in and open up a blank blogger? Like, are there any kind of parameters there for that?
I think part of it is modeling through our home base blog, the MVA. So through that modeling process and through celebrating what you see on their blogs, through creating art and telling a story, I think that you end up really getting what that main blog looks like, except it's their own storyline. So we in the beginning we did have some common elements at the top of the blogs, and we asked them to take a picture that was symbolic to their team and post that at the top. As you can see, those have evolved over time. Every team looks a little bit different, but that's something that really occurs in the first few months as teams realize that this is their art and that everyone can see it.
Okay, so my next question is, sorry, I have a lot of questions. I have a whole keep file here of questions that I've wrote down to ask you, but the teachers have access to your main mission, vision, action blog. And can they go in and make posts? I know they would obviously have to link to their outside components, but I'm just trying to make sure I understand what their role would be within your main one-stop shop.
It depends. Everyone's an author, so a lot of their posts come down to Fly Closer days where they're celebrating, and I think we've had a tendency to, anytime a teacher transitions to a new school or an employee leaves and moves on, they take to the blog, and that's where they show gratitude. So when Heather left Thomas Nelson 16 months ago, she wrote a blog post as part of her storyline. And we can go back right now and look at that blog post, and you can see all the gratitude that she gave out. Heather, would you like to look at that? No, she said no.
Hey, so, we do have a question real quick. I think the fight song is playing at Elaine's school, so we're going to let her stay muted for just a quick minute. But this is my sweet Bethy Brandenburg that has dropped us a question on YouTube, and she has asked, what advantages do you see to using Blogger for the PLC blogs versus using Google Classroom for those? And she says that we use Blogger for the whole school, but within that, each PLC has their own. So thank you, Beth. That was a great question.
So it's easy for me to say this now, easier for me to say this, but I think we started with the assumption around how are we being stewards of information and of our stories for the future. And I think the Blogger is an organizing agent that is much more like a website and allows teams to easily transition from one meeting to the next, as well as own something locally as a PLC. Google Classroom, I think the capacity there is much more about efficiency and transaction. That's what the target of Google Classroom is, even for students. While you can tell a story in images and the words you put on there, it's not inherently meant to be artful. Whereas a blog is more of a place. It's like, this is our home, and this is something that we can build. And the blog could easily link to a Google Classroom that was that transactional document sharing agent, because we know the efficiency of that. But the blog itself is more about family and creating community.
Well, and I think too, just from kind of watching, because as I said at the beginning, like we have a lot of our principals right now in Hardin County are using Google Classroom, and the first thing that I immediately see as a difference is the component where they're actually posting and generating content that is distributed at a school-wide level, which they obviously don't have that capability. I mean, technically, but they don't have those teacher permissions or the ability to kind of do some of that within Classroom. But that actually, best question kind of it was a good segue into the next question I have, because I want to make sure that our viewers and everybody understands that Blogger is actually not a core service within G Suite. And so sometimes people don't realize that there are other additional services that are part of the G Suite. And so if there's anybody watching who doesn't see Blogger, or it's showing that it's restricted access, that's a conversation that you can have with your IT Google Admin Console manager, and they can just turn that switch on, for students or teachers. I know that functionality differs a lot from district to district in terms of what is turned on and off. So with that being said, what you have is remarkable. And to kind of tie that back into what we talked about with you last month and your teacher coaching and feedback, all of that is tied into your Blogger piece. I mean, they can still act, all of these systems that you've created are all interconnected and accessible and transparent for teachers and everybody in your building. So, but when Heather's going to walk us through some of these components here in a minute, but What advice do you have for teachers or principals who are getting started and they say, I want to make a blogger? What I have seen happen, and this is like real time. I mean, this happened when Heather came and spoke to our admin questions that said, okay, it's like, you know, a blank sheet of paper. Where do we go? How do we start? I mean, how do we develop something like this? Because the thing is, you have all of your staff on board with this, and they're all creating content, and they're, you know, a part of your story, which is remarkable. But what advice do you have for principals who say, I want to get there, so where should I start?
Wes, real quick, just unmute for us.
Yeah. So I think part of the story that we have had to tell ourselves here is that we're looking towards the future, and when you look long term, you think about structures that both help organize and create a sense of coherence, while also allowing for creativity and community to grow. And I think that for us, 5 years ago, it went like this. There was a blog, we created it, and it was relatively basic. It had some links at the top that were important to our school. And additionally, that first year, we had some PLC leaders transition, and we had intelligence loss. We had just a lack of coherence. And with that said, I asked every PLC team to create a blog. We sat down beside many of them and created it with them. And voila, 2 or 3 months later, they were using their blogs every week for PLC teams. And then probably 4 or 5 months later, their blogs took on a life of their own, because they found value in creating their own story. They found value in saying, this is something that's going to endure and that we're proud of. And there are lots of ways you could do this. Blogger is only one tool, but I think it's an easy tool to use, and it does streamline well with Google Docs, because Google owns Blogger, and it's integrated. It is not the most high-tech it's not the most high-tech forum, and I think that's another reason why it's useful. One thing I didn't share is that every student at Thomas Nelson has their own blog too. We have a model student blog, and the students use their blogs quarterly at minimum. Sometimes now they're using them in classrooms through an integrated model. But on those blogs, they have their own home base where they keep track of certain elements in their future story. So we have students, we have every student and our alumni as well. Some of our alumni have transferred that blog ownership over because it's their digital portfolio. That's a part of really thinking as well as, okay, so we know this is important to us as adults in the school. How does that trickle down to students? So,
well, I love that you mentioned that they kind of have ownership over their own story. I'll give a shout out to Buddy Berry. I went to a training he led about finding blue lobster ideas, and which essentially is a moonshot. And one of the things, you know, the recipes for getting to that moonshot kind of idea was the fun factor. And I think it gets overlooked a lot, and I think it's one of the things that makes Thomas Nelson so incredibly special. Is the culture that you guys have in your building, and allowing them the opportunity to kind of create a blog that is reflective of them and their personalities. And, you know, I mean, just when you pulled it up and we had the team that had the face in the hole, you know, and they were all astronauts. I mean, that stuff is so important, and that culture building is so important, and it just sometimes gets, I think, overlooked. And I would say that you're exactly right. And if I were a teacher and thinking, you know, oh, I don't know, this is hard, oh, this looks hard, then if I realized or recognized that I could put myself in an astronaut's body and put it on the interwebs, then I might just be a little more apt to make a blog. So I think that's really special and should not be overlooked at all.
Brooke, I have a question from Allison Langley. And she wants to know, so Wes, why Blogger over the platform as far as maybe another type of blogging service like WordPress?
We use Blogger, I think, partly because it is Google infrastructure, and it is easy to use. It's very easy to use.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'll jump in on that too, because I actually have a blog on WordPress, and I think Blogger is definitely, if you're looking at that kind of infrastructure, I would say that's going to be your best bet. Plus, with our schools having G Suite access, it is an additional service within G Suite. So you're going to be able to log in with your Google. It's going to be tied to your Google account. You can actually go into Blogger and lock things down to a domain. So you have a lot more functionality in terms of privacy, I think, with Blogger versus an outside service that's not part of G Suite like WordPress. Good question, though. All right. Well, thank you, Wes. That was amazing. Do we have any other questions anywhere? Any comments? My Google Keep Note. I think what I've decided I'm going to do is make a video on this, and I'm going to use this Kentucky Go Digital video, and I'm going to pull your demos, Wes, and I'm going to make this for my teachers because or my principals. I had a lot of them who wanted to do this, but I just felt like they weren't exactly sure where to start. And so I'm really hoping that this video is going to inspire them. And so thank you for sharing that. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Heather to lead us in a demo of how to get started with Blogger.
Hey guys. It's been really refreshing to hear Wes talk about Blogger, because as I travel around the state, I demo it as a digital infrastructure. And just a couple of things to point out, the question between Google Classroom and Blogger and what makes sense. I definitely agree with Wes. Blogger allows you to infuse that cultural narrative that is so integral in developing and pulling the staff together, developing culture and really pulling your staff together, and that story that can come through in their narrative. So that's very important. I do want to say, however, that you do, Wes, use a Google Classroom as well as an admin team to push out documents. Do you want to just speak to how you use a Google Classroom? You don't necessarily use it as an infrastructure.
So we use documents that we know need templates. So for example, within the context of our MDC coaching documents, if we know that every team needs a certain document or every teacher uses a certain document, which we have very few of those, but we do have those documents, we use Google Classroom to control document distribution. We all know that putting a link on a blog and telling everyone to make a copy creates a level of dilution and energy that isn't necessary. So by running that through Google Classroom, it certainly is a lot more efficient. In my head, I don't really know what other layers Google Classroom would have on it other than document distribution, but I may be missing something because I've not used it other than for that purpose.
So that is really the infrastructure and the anchor to connect all the systems together. And then Google Classroom at Thomas Nelson is for document distribution. So I did want to say they do use both. Google Classroom is a very transactive tool. It can be used as a very simple variation of this digital infrastructure. Okay, but let's talk about Blogger. So I've worked with a lot of principals on creating a blog. The good news is we're giving you the power of pause. So I'm going to go through the basics. It really only takes about 25 minutes. Beth Brandenburg, who's watching right now, she and I met at a coffee shop over the summer. with her assistant principal, and we sat down and created one and really talked about their staff theme, and they're playing off this gardening theme. So their blog really has to do with a garden patch. She works with kindergartners, I believe. Worked with Kathy Gibbs at JCPS. Her staff theme is all about night driving. They are the night middle school. So her staff theme has James Dean, and it's all about 50s cars. So that's usually the first question I ask principals. What is your staff theme for this year, and how can we infuse that into your digital infrastructure? So I always start with that question first. A couple notes on Blogger. I was a library media specialist formerly, so I've used about everything. I've used Weebly, I've used Wiki, I used Front Page to create my school webpage when I was at Old Kentucky Hill Middle School. And when Wes said we're using Blogger, I kind of pushed back a little bit because I felt like it was a little clunky, but once you get the hang of it, it is a very simple tool. And like Wes said, it's seamless with Google products and other Google tools. So they work together nicely. So I'm going to screen share now, and assuming you were a principal who had no idea where to get started, I'm going to start with the very basics on how to create a blog. So let me know if everyone can see. Wes, you want to chime in?
Yes. So the one thing I'll say before stepping out is, I think the blog for us is also really an important form of care. It's about caring for the information and the organization within your school. Let's say, hypothetically, I don't make it to, something happens to me, or I transition on to a different job. That blog is there for the next group of leaders to continue to build a story and to both honor the past and build on the past. And it's something that's really important as we think about taking care. If you have a principal or someone that's a PLC leader and they're like, what happens when I'm no longer here? This is the place that allows you to take care of the future, in the sense that people can build upon this story and they can have access to those important foundational documents.
Absolutely, and that really goes back to the word living. The Google, the G Suite tools, Blogger included, Google Classroom, all of these things allow for work to endure. And that's one of the problems in education. People are always coming and going, and because of that, there's an intelligence loss, and we're always having to start over. With this, it's seamless, and the next leader can get in the seat and have an amazing history archive to reference and to garner some insights as to how the school's been run in years past. And we talk about this a lot with principals. I was just with Courtney's team in Floyd County talking about this very topic, and they all agreed. Most of the time when you get in the principal's seat, you get handed a staff handbook or a few flash drives. You might get a 2-hour lunch with the former principal and a, hey buddy, if you have any questions, just give me a call, and that's it. Here you go, lead a school. In this ecosystem, you have a great reference point to come back to in order to kind of input how the school had been run previously. So without further ado, let's get into how to create a blog. So I'm going to go into screen share mode. Everybody look good? Everybody with me? Okay, so all you have to do is go to Google and simply type in blogger.com. When you type in blogger.com, you will see the option, the orange button, create your blog. Now, I'm signed into my daughter's account right now because I needed an account that had never created a blog before, so you could see it from the beginning, what it looks like. Now, I'm not going to be a professional blogger. I'm not going to use my Google Plus profile. I'm just going to create a limited blogger profile. And my display name, let's just say my display name for today, actually, I'll go ahead and put Heather Worrell. And I'm going to continue to Blogger. So what I say in Google world is all the good buttons are blue. In Blogger world, all the good buttons are orange. So you're always looking for that orange button. Now, when you get to Blogger, I'm going to scroll over and you will see the option to create a new blog. So this is where you title your blog. if I wanted to make a blog for my school, let's just call it Purple Cow Academy. And I'm going to call it Purple Cow Academy. Let me see if I can spell. .blogspot.com. Now, it's checking the availability. Apparently, I've already used this as a demo before. I'm going to call it Purple Cow Academy 1. So a lot of times, schools will have a name for their blog, and it'll come up unavailable, so they'll have to try a couple times to find one that hasn't previously been claimed. At this point, you have several different themes. When I work initially with the principal, I always go with the simple theme. Brooke, why are you laughing at me? I see you smiling down there.
I'm laughing because Wes's face is on your camera, so I think if you just click on yours, we'll be able to see you. Wes was making some funny faces, and it was just cracking me up.
Yeah, he normally does have a funny face to make when I start talking. So, Helen. Okay, I'm actually going to click on your face. I don't see my face down here. So how about that?
Oh, no.
Okay. So now we're at the point where you choose a theme. I always choose the orange simple theme when I work with a principal for the first time. So choose simple and then click create blog. And welcome to your digital infrastructure. And I'm not going to create a Google domain right now, so I'm just going to click no thanks. But if that's something you're interested in, you could. So this is what it looks like when you get to Blogger. Over here on the left side, it's very similar looking to like a Google Drive. But the very first thing you're going to want to do is lock this down to and make it private. So to do that, just like in Google World, you look for this little wheel or cog or whatever that thing's called. What do you call that, Brooke? What do you call the settings wheel?
I call that a gear.
Gear.
Heather, go ahead and unmute yourself for us.
Sorry. Okay. So you'll notice after did you guys catch the part over here about the gear and the wheel? Okay. So when you click on the wheel or the gear, the settings, you'll notice this is where if you ever decide to change the name of your blog, it's right here. You would just click edit. You could give your blog a description. You could say the digital infrastructure for the awesome purple cows at the Purple Cow Academy or whatever your school may be called. Down here, if you decide to change the address of your blog, you will notice right here, you can edit that as well. Let me scroll over a little bit. I'm on two screens. Okay.
Heather, can I jump in real quick and give a plug? The Google Certified Educator exam covers basics of Blogger. So that's another great way to kind of dive into Blogger and then go into, some deeper Blogger sort of tricks and tips in the level 2 exam. So Blogger is covered as an additional service in that curriculum. So just another option for you out there.
Awesome. Okay. So on the settings, we were looking at the basic, and I'm having trouble scrolling down. I'm trying to use two screens. Let me go like this. There we go. Okay. Are you all still with me? You guys still there? Okay, good. So when you scroll down to the bottom, you will notice the option to create, make your blog private. So where it says blog readers, you will click edit, and you have the option private only blog authors, because like Wes said, you're going to want to make every teacher an author on your blog. So I'm going to click private only blog authors, and right here you can see my daughter's the admin. I'm using her account. So in order to add, okay, let me go ahead and save that real quick. Let's save that. Let me save that real quick. Okay, so now I have made it private. And to add authors, just like in Google World, anytime you want to add something, you hit the plus button. So to add authors, you just type in their associated account, which is always their email address. So if I wanted to invite Brooke, I would invite brooke.whitlow@hardin.kyschools.us, and I would invite her as an author. And at this point, she's going to get an email, And when she gets that email, she'll have to accept my invitation. So in the short term, you're going to have to invite every teacher to be an author. And then maybe at a faculty meeting, you're going to say, okay, everyone, open your email and click the orange button that says you accept the meeting invite. So right now you can see I have one open invitation. Now, if Brooke accepts that invitation, I can change her permissions and make her admin as well. So I always tell principals, this is something you would want to do for your assistant principals so they can actually help design the periphery of the blog. Only the teachers would be able to do posts as authors on the blog.
I just accepted it if you want to.
Okay. Okay, it should pop up. I'll come back over to it in just a little bit. Okay, so at this point, you have it locked down so that it's private. Only authors are going to be able to see your blog, and this is very important. And now you're ready to start working with the layout. Now, I always warn principals, this is going to be a little uncomfortable because most principals are not professional web page designers. So in order to create the layout of your blog, you go over to the left and click the layout feature. And this is where principals are like, oh, I can't do this. And I'm like, yes, you can. We can do this. There's just a couple things that we need to add to get your blog all lined up and ready to go. So first thing, Wes was talking about gadgets. You'll notice on his blog, he had the pages going across the top. So we're going to click Add a Gadget. And in order to get the pages going across the top, you're going to add the Pages gadget. So in Google World, we always hit the plus. And now I have the Pages gadget, and I can add an external link. Let's say I wanted to add my living calendar as an external link that I had created, and I'm just going to make up a generic. You paste your living calendar link right there, but I'm just going to put that there as a placeholder. So when I click Save, I've now added that gadget, and if I go over here to View Blog, you will see at the top, I have now added the Pages gadget, and I can add more page links right here. But the good news is from now on, I don't have to go back through the template. I can just use the wrench and the screwdriver. So from now on, anytime I wanted to add an external link, you just click the wrench and the screwdriver. And you'll see Brooke is now a contributor on my blog, which is really cool. To go back to where we were, we just go back to the top right corner and click Design. And if we go back to our layout, there's one more gadget that we want to add. Remember on Wes's blog, he had a list of data resources, data links, and he had another list of PLC blog links. So that is actually called a link list gadget. So in order to add that gadget, I'm going to click Add a Gadget once again, and I'm going to scroll down and find this one that's called Link List, and you can always insert several of these if you like. And most of the time when I work with principals, the first link list that they insert is a link list called Teacher Resources. So let's say your first teacher resource was PGS Self-Reflection Protocol. So maybe you have that, and then you paste the link, and I'm just once again going to do a generic placeholder link, but you would place the link for the PGS self-reflection protocol that you have. It might be a Google Doc or a Google slide, and then click Add Link. And after you do that, you'll click Save. And now we have a teacher resources list, link list. So if we go back to, let me save arrangement. And if I go back to View Blog, we now have two gadgets. We have Pages, and these are your big core anchor pieces that you're going to want to put at the top. And then on the right side, we have our first link list. Like I said on Wes's blog, it said data systems. He also had one that said PLC blogs. But this one is just where most principals get started with just simple teacher resources. Now, at this point, you're ready to let's actually go back to your design and think about what you want your blog to look like, because you have the layout finished. But now let's talk about making it look pretty, because obviously we can't have an orange blog if our school's called the Purple Cow Academy. So in order to make your blog customized with logos and colors and fonts, all you do is click the theme button and you click the orange customize button. And now we can change the background. And if I drop down here, there are lots and lots of themes that we can choose from. There's like a nice little purple theme. That's kind of cool. You can also upload pictures if you like. Right up here, it says upload an image. So if you want to upload an image of whatever the case, whatever it may be to put in your background, you could do that as well. So I could choose this purple right here and click done. This is also where, okay, I'm going to change my theme there. Boy, this is really purple. You can also, if you go to the layout, you can play around with the layouts and adjust the widths. But advanced is where you want to spend some time playing. And I always tell principals, this is something that you do when you're like watching TV with your laptop on your lap at night. You play around with how your blog looks and go to the advanced features. For instance, if I wanted to change the blog title, make it Georgia, make it bigger, change the color, this is where you could do all of this. The tab text, I could make these Georgia, make them purple, whatever you want to do. But after you finish adjusting in the design feature, you click apply to blog and your theme is applied. And let's go back to Blogger. And now, and of course, this isn't the prettiest blog, but I'm just doing this in a hurry so you can kind of get an understanding. At this point, this is what our blog would look like. Now, I would recommend, because you're going to have a big old list of contributors, I'd hit that little wrench and screwdriver and remove that, because you don't want a big old list there. You want more room for link lists and stuff like that. So if I refresh, that should have just gone away. Also, up here at the top, I always tell principals you don't necessarily need the home button. So we always remove that and click save. Let me exit out of that. And if I refresh the blog, that has gone away. Now, this is my favorite part, talking about posts, because the main thing in the beginning that you saw was that we use this blog for meeting agendas. And we put the meeting agendas on a new post. So if you go up here in the top right corner, you will see where you can create a new post. You'll see that button. And we would call this post title faculty meeting, and we always put the date. So maybe it's today, October 19th, 2018 or 17. Okay. So if you wanted to put a video, and Wes was talking about us using this and embedding videos and really tending to the culture, we'd always started our meetings with music and fun. So if I go to YouTube, and let's say we're celebrating some really great student growth, and I'm looking for the song Celebration, well, there it is, Cool in the Gang. So I'm going to click that video, and when everyone goes to our blog at the start of the meeting, this video will be there, and also we're projecting the agenda, and we can play this video as well. And then this is where you would put agenda. And maybe the first thing that you were going to do is gratitude, gratitude circle, or gratitude to everyone. Then the next thing, you're reviewing that PLC protocol, whatever. And this is where you could actually link in wherever that PLC protocol is. You could link it. And I don't have the link. I'm just doing a generic link once again. But when I click OK, now as people move through this meeting agenda, they would just click this link and it would take them to that PLC protocol. And then we might end with next steps or whatever the case may be. So after I get my agenda placed on this post, I just hit publish, save, and then publish. And now if I view the blog, I have my meeting agenda, I have Cool in the Gang, tending to the culture, the colors, all that good stuff. So let me stop Cool in the Gang. I always love that song. And that's basically how you build a blog. The only other thing that people get excited about, if I go back to design, how do I get my logo at the top? You notice that Wes had an astronaut. In order to do that, you would just go to the header. And if you click edit, you can actually choose an image from your computer, and we would always make our images on a Google slide and then save them as a JPEG. And when you upload that image and click save, instead of this where it says Purple Cow Academy, we would replace this with the image that really reinforced our staff theme. So for like Kathy Gibbs and JCPS, there's like a picture of James Dean driving a car for night riding. I know Beth Brandenburg did something with a garden, so you could replace that. Okay, so let me get out of share mode. There's Brooke again. Hey, lady, I'm going to mute, and hopefully that was good enough, and you guys got some ideas on how to build a blog.
Well, I'm going off the cuff here. So listen, I'm a fly by the seat of my pants kind of gal. So as you were talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to share a couple of tools to kind of help you do what Heather was talking about, because I am super into the way things look visually. I think that that's very important when you're talking about, especially using Blogger as a storytelling kind of piece. And so what Heather was talking about, I'm going to go ahead and screen share real quick and just show you a couple of different little tricks. Somebody unmute and tell me that we're good there. Y'all see me? Are we good?
You're good.
Okay, sweet. So here's the blog that Heather just did, and I wanted to show you a little trick. Now, I don't want anybody to freak out, okay, but I'm going to do a right click on this header, and one of the tricks that I do when I'm designing things the way and trying to get things the way exactly that I want them to look, I use this little tool here called Inspect. And what this is going to do is bring up the HTML of your page. Now, again, nobody panic, okay? So see this right here? I'm going to click header. And when I click that, you'll notice where my mouse is. See this color changing right here? So this tells me exactly how big that header is. So if you're like, you know, I like it that size, but I don't really want it to be that way. I want to make my own with my own school logos and my own, you know, just like Heather was saying with her, you know, they do it on a Google slide. But this right here tells you exactly how big that is. One of my favorite beginner design tool things is canva.com. And one of the features on Canva, it allows you to use custom dimensions. So if you look at this, okay, so look, I'm going to go back over here. It tells me it's 940 by 147. So I can literally type that in here. I just forgot what it was, 940 by 147. And then what Canva allows me to do, it brings up the exact pixel dimensions that I need to put on my Blogger. And so at this point, I can hopefully, let's see, we have the spinning wheel of death here. Okay, so here is my header image. And Canva is a really cool tool. There's a lot of stuff on Canva you have to watch out for that is paid. So if it has, you know, a watermark on it, like if I typed in computer here, so some of this stuff is obviously paid, but some of it is free. So you can kind of scroll down there and find your own pixel art. But what's really powerful for me is the uploading feature. So I can actually just upload like my school logo or whatever into Canva. And then download, whenever I'm done, I can download that as a photo and then put it directly into your Blogger, which is a really fun tool to really customize the look of your Blogger. Another tool that we're going to add into the resources for your for our episode today is Colorzilla. And Colorzilla is a Chrome extension that allows you to match colors. Now, you guys are seeing me wave my nerd flag pretty loud and proud today. But I like, again, just like Heather said, I mean, I think the visual component is important when we're talking about storytelling. So when you click that little Chrome extension, it's going to allow me to actually choose colors. So if I go over here and click my Colorzilla Chrome extension, I can say pick color from page. And so what it's going to do is, let me try that again. Oh, see, there it is. See, it made my color, and it copied that exact color to my clipboard. So what I can do now is paste that color into, just like Heather showed you, under the advanced settings whenever you're going into Blogger. So lots of cool options there with Canva and Colorzilla to customize your actual blogger appearance. Another thing too, if you're like, okay, Brooke, you're over my head, you're talking nerd talk right now. I did want to go in here and just mention in Google Slides that you can also customize the size of your Google Slides. So I can say I wanted this by 940 by 147 to make it that exact size that was just on my blogger. And so now if you're more comfortable using Google Slides versus Canva, then you can go in here and still design it and customize it to make it however big or whatever size you want it to be. So just, I could not end this episode without talking to y'all about some of my nerdy like design things. So I
love it, Brooke, and that is exactly why you are my friend right there, because you know those things. And Lord knows that Purple Cow Academy blog we just made, it needs a lot of love. So
well, I was just about to say the difference in those purples was already giving me hives. So
me too. And, you know, and we would spend some time, and that's what I tell principals. Once you get into it and start playing, it becomes so addicting. And then look, 5 years later, look what can happen, like what happened with Thomas Nelson. So I hope that, and also anybody, now that you have the power of pause, you can go back and watch that demo, how to make a blog. But you can also reach out to any one of us, and we'd be happy to support you as well.
Yeah, you can tell that none of us enjoy talking about this stuff, right? I mean, I'm like so amped because guess what I'm going to be spending my evening doing? I'll give you 3 guesses. So that's a perfect segue into our wrap up for the show. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I know that I did. I have a keep file and I have notes and I'm like ready to rock and roll because I'll be honest, Wes had to hop off, but I want to make sure that he knows I was not totally sold on Blogger. I was, on the fence about it, and I'm telling you what, I just got the keys and drove off the Blogger lot, baby. Let me tell you. So hook, line, and sinker, he got me. So I hope you guys enjoyed that today. Courtney, would you care to hop in and share how everyone out there can stay supported with the tools we've talked about today?
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Brooke, for having Wes. This was a great show. I needed to learn the tools and how everyone can learn more about the show today and previous shows. Log on to KentuckyGoDigital.com. We have all of the episodes, The Power of Pause. We are live or on Facebook. So you can go to Kentucky Go Digital and look at all the upcoming shows, past shows, and on Twitter. Very active. I'm going to show my screen because I want you to see what we have been doing for the Connected Educators for October. You can see here the periodic table. So on Twitter, when you tweet out an idea and connect and share with the hashtag Kentucky Go Digital, you will see this table of all the educators that have really been sharing and connecting throughout the state. We want you on here. So if you get onto Twitter and can follow us and follow that hashtag and tweet out some good things about what you're doing in the classroom, some ideas, and share with one another. Another idea and a way to connect is with Flipgrid. You can see here, we've got to give a shout out to Chase at Caverna. He started this and it's kind of exploded, and it's a great tool that teachers can use. So that's a lot of different ways to help join in the Kentucky Go Digital fun. So Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Flipgrid, a lot of different ways.
Yes. We were talking about Flipgrid this weekend, and I am obsessed with Flipgrid because it just brings that personal connection. You see people on Twitter and you recognize their hashtag, and that Flipgrid really just helps you get to know the person behind the Twitter handle. So it's really powerful. Lots of ways to connect with Kentucky Go Digital. Heather, I know we have some events coming up that are exciting. Would you care to talk about those real quick?
Yes, actually the Kentucky Go Digital live team met yesterday to start thinking about our summer regionals. So we'll have some dates coming out soon about our summer Kentucky Go Digital regionals. We're really excited about that. But this winter, the next thing that we are working to partner with is the P3 Principal Ed Camp in Louisville on December 6th. I actually spent the day with the P3 team yesterday, and they said they still have plenty of room. We will have a Kentucky Go Digital track, especially for principals who are wanting to learn from other principals about how they're using digital tools to revolutionize the way that they lead schools. So we're bringing in an all-star principal team on December 6th. So I've tweeted out that link to register a ton, but maybe we can also include it in the show notes as well.
Awesome. All right, Elaine, it has been a pleasure hanging out with y'all. Will you close this out?
Absolutely. So I wanted to share my screen and let you guys know what we're doing on Monday. Our next session is, it has Laura Dalton, and she is going to be sharing with her amazing team from Stewart Academy and JCPS to learn more about the Google Sites as their digital infrastructure. So make sure that you join us in, and don't forget, as you create and connect your good ideas to our hashtag so others can share them around the state. So make sure that you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and all the above, and we are super glad to have you, and have an awesome day.
Elaine, real quick before we go off the air, I just noticed over in the live chat, so let's give a shout out to some of those people who joined us in the live chat today. So who did you see over there?
Well, we saw, let's see, we've got Stacy Spears. Let's see, let me stop screen sharing. Sorry. We've got Stacy Spears, Byron Darnell, and we talked to also, see, Beth Brandenburg, and several, let's see, who else was up with us? Chase Goff, of course, came, and Allison Langley. We had some discussion also that I wanted to talk about as far as just making sure the difference between Google Classroom and Blogger, and of course Wes and Heather, you definitely proved that it's writing history and keeping it in the books and making sure that it doesn't get lost, which is amazing. So lots of awesome people that joined us today, and just keep it up.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us, especially y'all over on the YouTube. How fun is that live YouTube chat? I love it. So make sure you share this with your colleagues and principals, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the Twitter sphere. Have a great day.
Get involved with Kentucky Go Digital. Attend regional events, like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel,